Okay, thank you to all three of you for outstanding presentations. I understand that Dr. Sessler has to leave relatively soon after 10 or after the top of the hour, but we are now open for questions. And our first question is from Amanda Naylor.
Hello, I'm Amanda Naylor. I'm a rising second year at Loyola Chicago. I actually have a question for all three of our panelists, if they can answer. I'm interested in your insights about balancing clinical and research time. What does this balance look like in your career, and how did you decide on the time that you would dedicate to each?
Okay, well, I'll be glad to start. For me, the balance has always been towards research. I have actually never in my life worked clinically more than 1 day a week. I just decided early on that research was my focus, and that's the way I've organized my career. Of course, that's a little bit of an unusual approach, and other people do it differently. The question's a good one because it's very hard to be really expert in something if you don't spend a lot of time in it. And that applies both on the clinical side and on the research side. So the best researchers spend a lot of time doing research, and the best clinicians spend a lot of time doing clinical care. It's always a bit of a toss-up. I would suggest making conscious decisions, though, is don't just do as much clinical work as your chair tells you to do. Instead, think about how much clinical work you want to do, what the appropriate balance is for you, and then make that happen by negotiating with your chair, if necessary, moving to a different department, getting grants, doing what you need to arrange the balance that you think will serve your career best.
Yeah, I think I can, I also have had mostly, I've been 70 to 80% research throughout my post-training time. And I think, for very much the same reasons that Dr. Sessler has brought up. And I think some of things that kind of drive, the ability to do that is being as streamlined as you can with things, but also getting as much clinical training under your belt as you can early on, and really getting comfortable clinically. And I think I heard that Dr. Sessler did a residency in pediatrics. I did one in internal medicine, as well as critical care fellowship. And those during those years, the clinical training was my focus, making sure that I got really clinically grounded. So that, and even, did the extra fellowship training to solidify that, and then to try to have things, be in one arena. You are going to give things up if you have a balance that's 80-20 or, 70-30. But you also can try to figure out how to really set yourselves up to succeed, and to do things that are not, as examples, getting on committees that are appropriate to your research and to, your direct clinical area, so that, you're not getting waylaid, but you're also contributing and doing service as your career evolves, helps to keep that balance good. And so that those are just the kind of the things that I wouldn't recommend that everyone goes and does 2 residencies, but just that you really, are very focused during your clinical time if you plan to have a heavy duty research career that also involves clinical work.
I completely agree with both of those comments. The only thing I'd add is, specifically around building out that research time. What's really helped me as well was to get a more heavy weight toward research after my fellowship. Early on in my career, I felt that through mechanisms such as career development awards, that have really helped to underlie an underlying framework, as well as a group of scientific methods, as well as become an expert in at least one subject matter area that you're really passionate about. that you can take that initial time to grow. And I've seen many of my colleagues after having that period that they can launch, be able to move sometimes into a different balance between clinical and between clinical care and research.
I want to thank you for those thoughtful answers. I note that we are at time or a little bit over. So thank you all for presenting. That was really fabulous information. We will continue on with questions when I'm done with this little blurb for as long as you all can stay on and don't feel you need to stay on. If you need to go, just go ahead and log off. I just want to remind you that next week is a light week. We have our interrupted journal club for half an hour on Wednesday, August 5th at 11 Eastern time. And then the following week, we finish up with a journal club on pharmacology and pulmonary, and the journal club next week is the sepsis COVID-19 journal club. The following week, we have our final journal club on pharmacology and pulmonary on Wednesday, August 12th at noon Eastern time. And then the panel presentation is on scientific writing and publication on Thursday, August 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And with that, I am looking for more questions. Actually, I want to say one more thing, which is I want to thank Dr. Neil Fleming, who joined us today. It's nice to have mentors come in and listen to what's going on. I always have questions, but I'd much rather have med students have questions. And there's Dr. Fleming waving. Thank you for putting your picture on. Thomas, you have questions. Please go ahead.
Hi, all. I just want to thank you guys for your presentations. My name is Thomas. I am a rising, or I guess second year now, at St. Louis University. I was wondering how you guys would advise, given a limited time to focus on research kind of situation, as to how to kind of choose projects, how to focus on them, and what your thoughts are in terms of that. And then the second part is, I guess in regards to Dr. Hellman's presentation, I found someone who I feel like is an amazing mentor. However, our research interests aren't fully aligned, only somewhat. So how would you advise kind of moving forward and like perhaps branching out more into that field of interest, or what are your thoughts on those situations?
So I think in terms of, having a mentor that may not have the exact same kind of long-term research focus as you is okay, especially at this stage. If what you're doing with that mentor is learning methodology, and there's a way that your interests can be taken into account, by them. I guess, it depends a little bit on the situation. So just as, for example, if you're going into a basic lab, and they're doing research on one thing, innate immunity. So my lab did research on sepsis and innate immunity. Somebody who had done a PhD wanted to understand lung ischemia reperfusion injury and innate immunity. That was possible with a long-term focus, but in the short term, if you're going into kind of a basic science lab like that, it's probably better to get onto a project that they have ongoing that's going well, for which they have the expertise. So it really depends on kind of what type of research it is that you're doing. There's, certainly in the territory of data sciences and outcomes research, there can be a lot of synergy between, people with different clinical areas of focus or research areas of focus. So I'm not sure if that answers your question very well on that, but.
I would also just add, at least for me, and I think that depending on the area, in addition to trying to get synergy with a primary mentor, no one mentor can also potentially suit and fill, every gap that that you need filled in terms of your, be it your research subject matter, your methodology, and in fact, even professional growth, even outside of research. And I feel that, I have, in my career, several mentors, both in the research and professional space that have helped guide me. And, I would, continue to think, as you develop that, to potentially think about identifying, a team of mentors that can help you, both with your clinical research, be it professional leadership, the main goals that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I would, that's actually a great point. I mean, having a research advisory committee that is composed of different mentors can be very helpful. And I wanted to just add one thing, which is that, that you can go into a situation, get on a project, learn a lot, and then you can begin to branch off later as well from a given mentor and with your own research ideas. And in fact, that's kind of a nice way for things to go. So just sort of being open to, well, maybe I should go into a group and work on, a project that my mentors wants me to work on, with the idea that I will eventually expand this knowledge and bring that into this situation.
And did you address the step 1 preparation versus research question, either of you?
So I guess is the question balancing? I'm not quite sure I understand what the question is.
So I think if we were in a situation where we felt limited in terms of like potential projects that we can pursue or want to pursue, do you have any thoughts on like how to perhaps narrow down that focus to say, okay, like, oh, I have one research project I can only work on. I have to choose. How do I kind of make those decisions and I guess keep
in
those
the context of your second year, not your entire career.
Yes.
Well, one basic thing that I forgot to say in my talk, even though I really meant to, was that you really have to look at how much time you have as one factor in that. So, looking at the projects in terms of, are these different possibilities doable, compared to this one, am I more likely to get this project done? I think that's a kind of a very important thing, is in the feasibility of it, and not being too diffuse, getting, narrowing down to probably a single project that you can put a lot of attention into, but that will be doable given the limitations of the fact that you're going to be studying for step 1 and doing all the, normal things that you do.
Yeah, and to echo from Dr. Hellman's presentation, can't emphasize enough that, it's something that you're interested and excited about, and that I know that you're very early in your medical career, and it's hard to predict, what exact niche of clinical practice you're going into, but as much as you can line all of those up together, might weave together a story that lines up with your research and clinical interests.
I don't think I've missed any questions, but I know we have to have more questions coming. So I might have to ask a question, and nobody really wants that, right? Dr. Fleming, do you have a question?
I don't know if I have any questions. I will say that with respect to step 1 and balance, I think it's important to remember at any given time where your priorities are. And step 1 is still scored, and it is opportunities for down the road. And so your primary focus in the second year is still second year. And you don't want to get too deep in the research weeds and lose track of the primary job.
And I would say that really echoes what Dr. Hellman said. during your residency, you may want to get deeply involved in research, and that's good, but really your primary job as a resident is to learn clinical anesthesiology or whatever it is your specialty is. And I think similarly in medical school, your primary job is to learn medicine. Now I think participating in research projects that you can fit in can add to your education, can make you understand how to read the literature, can make you understand what's important, can tie into the things that you're learning. And so it can be really helpful. And I will also remind you that step one does not define what makes a good doctor. And so you should not ignore the rest of your second year curriculum because you're studying for step one. Because I like residents to know something, I care even more that they're professional and know how to take care of patients. I don't know if you all have comments on the philosophy of what to focus on in second year.
Well, I'll just add that, I know we focused very much around research here, but, to touch upon the clinical aspect, we can't stress enough that a focus around, your medical education, and specifically, as Dr. Hellman mentioned, around residency, focus around becoming an excellent clinician. This isn't only for, obviously improving our patients' care and patients' lives, but all of us, that our work in the research community also, work in institutions that take care of very complex patients, and oftentimes with tertiary and quaternary illness and care that's required. And I can't stress enough that, if you're working in research in one of these institutions, then a requisite is to develop comfort in the care of what are really sometimes extremely challenging and complex patients.
All right, well, we don't have any more questions, so I am going to say thank you so much to our amazing presenters. Just great information and insight. Remind you all to join us next Wednesday at 11 Eastern time for that follow-up COVID-19 sepsis Journal Club Part 2. And I will see you all next week, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your week.